Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Aminatun Nafisah. In this video, I will present my final task for research statistics. In this presentation, I will discuss two research cases. The first case is an experimental research, and the second case is a correlational research. For each case, I will explain the research context, research question, variables, hypothesis, and most importantly, how to read and interpret the SPSS output step by step. I will try to explain my presentation clearly, so I will not only mention the statistical result, but I will also explain what the numbers mean and how to interpret them correctly. And now I will begin with the first case, which is experimental research entitled Teaching Writing Using Picture Series versus Conventional Method. This study compares two different teaching methods in teaching writing. And the reason why I choose this topic is because writing is one of the most difficult English skills for students, and many students find it difficult to generate ideas and organize them into a good paragraph. Often, students know vocabulary and grammar, but they do not know how to start writing. So because of this problem, as a teacher, we need a learning media that can help students express their ideas more easily. And one learning medium that can be used is picture series because pictures can guide students to develop ideas step by step. So, based on this background, the research question of this study is there a significant difference in writing scores between student taught using picture series and student taught using the conventional method? Therefore, the hypotheses here are formulated as follows. The null hypothesis states that there is no significant difference in writing scores between the two groups. And as you can see here, the alternative hypothesis states that there is a significant difference in writing scores between the two groups. And then we move to research design and variables. The study uses an experimental research design with two independent groups, and the total number of participants is 20 students. The experimental group is taught using picture series, while the control group is taught using the conventional method. The independent variable is the teaching method, of course, and the dependent variable is the students' writing scores. And then for data analysis technique, as you can see here, the students' writing score are measured using an interval scale. And as I said before, because the total number of participants is 20 students and the experimental group consists of 10 students and the control group also consists of 10 students. This study compares the mean score of two different and independent groups. An independent sample t-test is used. A two-tailed test is applied here because the research question only asks whether there is a difference, not the direction of the difference. So now I will explain the SPSS output starting with the group statistics table. Based on the table, the experimental group has n equals 10 students with a mean score of 78.50, while the control group also has 10 students with a mean score of 69.40. Nah, secara deskriptif, nilai rata-rata kelompok eksperimen itu lebih tinggi dibandingkan dengan kelompok kontrol. However, at this stage, we cannot directly conclude effectiveness because the difference must be tested statistically. So, before interpreting the t-test result, we must examine Levin's test for equality of variances. The purpose of this test is to determine whether the variances of the two groups are equal. The significant value of Levin test is 0.256 because 0.256 is greater than 0.05, the null hypothesis of Levin test is not rejected. This means that the variances of the two groups are equal. So the analysis uses the equal variances assume row. Based on the equal variances assume row, the results are as follow. The T value is 7.664 with degree of freedom equal to 18, and the seek to tail value is less than 0.001. Because the p-value is smaller than 0.05, the null hypothesis is rejected. Nah, this indicates that there is a statistically significant difference between the writing scores of the experimental group and the control group. And then, um, as we can see here, the mean difference is 9.00. I mean, the mean difference is 9.100. This means that students start using picture series score approximately 9 points higher than students start using the conventional method. The confidence interval range from 6.605 to 9.595. Because this interval does not include zero, the difference is statistically significant. Now, therefore, it can be concluded that teaching writing using picture series is effective. And then for interpretation of this output based on living test, the significant value is above 0.05, which means the variances of the two groups are equal. Therefore, the result under equal variances assumed is used. The independent sample t-test shows that the significant total value is below 0.05. This indicates that the null hypothesis is rejected and there is a significant difference between the experimental and control groups. And after explaining the experimental research, I will now move to case 2, which is correlational research. The study examined the relationship between students' study time and their English scores. The research question here is there a significant relationship between study time and English score? The hypothesis states that the null hypothesis there is no significant correlation between study time and English score, while alternative hypothesis there is a significant correlation between the two variables. And then we move to variable and scale of measurement. The total number of participants in this study actually is 20 students. Study time is measured in hours and uses a ratio scale. English score is measured using an interval scale. Because both variables are numerical and measured using interval or ratio scale, person-product moment correlation is used. Nah, here I will also explain about SPSS output of correlation result. Based on the SPSS output, the person correlation coefficient is 0.941. This value indicates a very strong positive correlation between student study time and their English score, and the significant value is less than 0.001. Because the p-value is smaller than 0.05, the null hypothesis is rejected. This means that the student who spends more time studying tend to achieve higher English scores. However, it is important to note that this result shows correlation, not causation. So, to conclude, the result of SPSS output, the person correlation analysis shows a positive correlation between student study time and their English test score. The significant value is below 0.05, and it's indicating that the relationship between the two variables is statistically significant. Yeah, to conclude the Experimental research shows the picture series are effective in improving students' writing ability, and the correlational research shows a strong and significant relationship between study time and English score. Yeah, that's all about my presentation, and I hope you guys get my point. Thank you very much for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.